Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Urban Session at the California Irrigation Institute Conference. We are very pleased to welcome you. We're going to have some terrific speakers. The subject of our session is the regulatory update on the water conservation framework in California and studies and programs that are feeding into that. So we'll have our speakers introduced to you in just a moment. But first, what I'd like to do is show you some videos from two of our sponsors. And at this point, I'd like to introduce the first video, which comes from Hunter Irrigation Products. And T, if you would run that video, that would be terrific.
On water savings options offered by Hunter Industries. I'm Greg Grossing, Product Training Specialist here at Hunter. These are the topics that we're going to be covering today in our presentation. A brief history of Hunter Industries, overview of water saving solutions offered by Hunter Industries, an introduction to the HydroWise cloud-based controller platform, a run-through of all the available models of controllers that use the HydroWise platform. We will also be discussing what separates HydroWise from the rest of the Wi-Fi controllers on the market. And finally, a look into our extensive customer support options. Our mission here at Hunter Industries is to deliver valued products and services, grow the company conscientiously, and remain true to the culture that makes our employees proud to work at Hunter. As well, our vision is to be the customer's first choice for products and services, respected for preserving our culture and core values of customer satisfaction, innovation, family, and social responsibility wherever we do business. We were founded in 1981 by Ed Hunter after his first retirement, who was already a pioneer in the industry. We've been headquartered in San Marcos, California since 1981. Hunter's core business interest has been producing products that allow irrigation professionals to create solutions that use as little water and energy as possible to create optimal landscape function and ambiance. Beyond efficient product innovation, Hunter is also known as a leader in outstanding customer service, product training, and technical support in all of our business segments. And beyond efficient product innovation, Hunter is also known as a leader in outstanding customer service, product training, and technical support in all of our business segments. At Hunter, we offer a complete line of water savings products for our end user. From the controller down to the last sprinkler or emitter on the line, we are all about saving water over the entire system. We have a complete line of irrigation controllers, from 4-station residential models all the way up to 225-station commercial decoder models and everything in between. This includes solar-powered and battery-powered models. Many have app-based or cloud connectivity options. So here at Hunter, we speak irrigation. Our complete line of pressure-regulated spray bodies are EPA WaterSense labeled to meet the new California state mandate requiring pressure regulation in all pop-up bodies sold in the state. Brown 30 PSI models are specifically for traditional spray nozzles for optimal distribution uniformity. Both Brown 30 PSI and Gray 40 PSI models are used with the MP rotators depending on desired radius. Newer model Gray Body 800 series MP rotators are designed for the 15-foot head spacing world and under. This series has doubled the precip rate at 0.8 inches per hour as opposed to 0.4 inches per hour on the original black-bodied MPs. This is still half the precip rate of traditional spray nozzles that replace that 15-foot and under retrofit or new installation. All MP rotators have the patented double pop feature that protects the nozzle from debris. Competitor nozzles have open orifices that clog after just a few cycles, so you have to flush the sprinklers to ensure their operation. With the MP rotator, you can count on a worry-free system. The SR or short radius series covers 6 to 12 foot radius, depending on which PRS 30 or PRS 40 pop-up body is used to control that radius. The precip rate of 0.8 inches per hour cuts in half the traditional MP rotator runtimes. These are perfect for residential retrofits of 6 to 12 foot spacing. The new 815 series has an 8 to 16 foot radius depending on which PRS 30 or PRS 40 pop-up body is used to control that radius. the same 0.8-inch precip rate cuts in half the traditional MP runtimes. These are also perfect for residential retrofits of 8 to 16-foot head spacing scenarios. The 815s have a slightly higher trajectory or angle of stream out of the water, so it's a little bit higher than the traditional MP rotator. Again, all models have the patented double pop feature to prevent clogging and debris intrusion from the top. There's no need to flush them like the other models on the market. We also offer a complete line of pre-assembled, pressure-regulated drip zone control kits. This feature is built in with a pressure regulator at 25 or 40 psi, and the line filtration is done with a stainless filter screen. We offer the lowest pressure loss by flow in the industry. They're all 100% water tested from the factory prior to shipping. You'll see that label on the valve. Some of our micro irrigation offerings include the HDL inline drip tubing that has color-coded stripes to depict the flow rate, as well as a reclaimed non-check valve version. Point source emitters with flow rates from 0.5 to 6 gallons per hour, multi-port emitters with flow rates from 0.5 to 4 GPH or gallons per hour, and a complete line of micro spray with riser mounted or barbed connections to the supply line. This is just a sampling of our complete line of micro irrigation products available for your water saving solutions. Now let's talk about the Hydrawise cloud-based controller platform, accessible from your computer, smartphone, or tablet. All you need is an internet-connected device, and you can access your controller from anywhere in the world. Hydrawise is the original Wi-Fi connected cloud-based irrigation platform. All of our Hydrawise controllers are EPA WaterSense approved. We offer standard or advanced programming modes that fit your needs. It also uses predictive watering based on the upcoming weather forecast. Another advancement is the manual read-only or read and write user privilege settings. The numerous controller models set Hunter Industries' Hydrawise platform apart from the rest. We offer conventionally wired and two-wire decoder controller model options, all with true outdoor IP-rated cabinets. No need to add an additional outdoor enclosure in an attempt to make the controller watertight from the elements. Pro C and ITC controllers offer retrofittable face panels to reuse the existing controllers and simply swap out the existing face panel to make it Hydrawise ready. The controller can also be operated online or offline without Wi-Fi. You can also manually start stations at the controller's touchscreen display panel without your smartphone or tablet. The Hydrawise flow meter is a flow sensor that resides in the irrigation mainline. We have hardwired meters and wireless transmitter versions available to assist in installations in existing landscapes. This meter qualifies as not just a sensor, but also a true sub-meter for construction purposes, all at an economical price point. Here's an example of the apps from the home screen showing GreenCheck as connected to internet, what sensors apply to this controller, and the state they are in. The current weather observations as well as forecast for the controller address. Manual operations are also performed here at the controller face itself. The individual watering zones information is stored here in a simple layout that allows you to edit, add a photo, or hit the information icon for a station summary. The information icon on each station produces a brief station summary of what has taken place and what's next on the schedule. Here's an example of the separate programs showing which stations pertain to the program, start times and watering days as well, if the program is simple time based or being operated on a percentage basis via the virtual solar sync. It also depicts what watering triggers are applied to each of the programs. With our predictive watering adjustments, you can set simple parameters to operate your base program under. The red ones mean it will stop irrigating or stop watering. The yellow ones will reduce the watering duration, and the green trigger will increase the watering percentage. The triggers here are just another way to adjust the cycle automatically, assignable by station or program for the utmost flexibility. Although not needed with the virtual weather station option, Hydrawise offers usability with on-site rain sensors or soil moisture sensors if desired. Flow sensor options really complete the water savings and alert notification package. Hydrawise has a huge report section showing the water schedule and actual history of what occurred. Weather info and forecast for the controller address are also listed in this section. It contains robust water usage totals and savings graphs, as well as flow rates by minute or by station. Solenoid load showing a shorted solenoid or no load scenario could indicate a cut wire to your solenoid, as well as historical weather and ET information are all included. So what sets Hydrowise apart from the current sea of Wi-Fi connected controllers? We have an event log showing who did what while logged in-app or text notifications of bad solenoids, open cuts, overflows, underflow alerts, and your choice of how to respond to them. Read-only or read and write user privilege settings, station shutdown in the event of an overflow, numerous controller models to choose from, true outdoor IP rated enclosure cabinets, and finally, we have a multi-site manager contractor portal available for landscape professionals to better assist their customers. The numerous alert choices can be assigned to notify the desired person and apply to other controllers on the system. You have the ability to take a certain action or suspend a station for a selected number of days when the alert has occurred for that station. The flow sensor can also alert on the main line if it exceeds the user specified quantity or flow. Help is just a click away. The intuitive in-app help section automatically offers you the top 3 support articles based on what page you're on in the app currently. You can also just type in keywords to the search box as well. At Hunter, support after the purchase is just in our DNA. At hunterindustries.com, we have a complete line of training modules and support articles to support the homeowner and contractor or gardener in operating Hydrowise. We also have a fully staffed technical support call center ready to log in with you into your account and assist you either via telephone or email. So as you can see, here at Hunter Industries, we're not just a software company. We offer a complete line of irrigation solutions for the homeowner or landscape professional. Hydrowise is a great residential option for irrigation control, water usage reports, and water conservation in general. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. That was a terrific presentation from Hunter. I'd like to welcome everyone who has joined us from the opening session. My name is Mary Ann Dickinson with the Alliance for Water Efficiency, and I have the distinct pleasure to be the moderator of the urban session this morning, which is going to feature a regulatory update on the water conservation framework in California. And we'll just do one more sponsor video. This next one will be from Rachio. And as soon as the video is over, we will start our session. So take it away.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Danielle Cumming, and I run the utility programs at Rachio. Today, I'm going to walk you through how we work with utilities to launch direct distribution programs. But first, a little bit about Rachio. At Rachio, we make sure our mission is at the forefront in everything we do. We make sustainable water use effortless and personally rewarding. A partnership with Rachio is not only beneficial for the resident, but for the utility as well. Residents will have access to our products, which include our smart sprinkler controller, offered in 8-zone or 16-zone, our newest product, Thrive, which is our natural lawn care treatment. Utility partners who run a program with us receive discounts on our controllers, allowing for more controllers to be distributed. They'll also have access to our Insights Lite platform and the option to collaborate on a Rachio engagement. When we begin a partnership, we always try to understand the goals and expectations for the program, as some of our most impactful work happens when specific results are achieved, such as conservation, peak shaving, and water quality. Now, we do run programs coast to coast, but California is definitely a state we're well versed in. Through utility programs alone, we have distributed over tens of thousands of controllers throughout California. We have partnerships with over 30 utilities, and some of these utilities you might actually already have access to programs through BOSCA or RWA. We do understand the weather severity, and our controller has proven to save anywhere from 15 to 30% in water savings in California alone. In order to be the best partner to our utilities and residents, we have streamlined the rebate process for smart sprinkler controllers. The example I'm going to use today is a new program we recently launched with California Water Efficiency Partnership, or better known as CalWEP. We have created a customized landing page for CalWEP, which is calwep.rachio.com, where residents can come to start their redemption process. With this program, your residents will be able to redeem a Rachio R3 controller at a discounted price, with or without a cost share from the utility. Each utility that signs on will have access to the Rachio portal and the Inside Slide platform. Now, our team has been marketing the Rachio sprinkler controller for quite a long time now. We know what message resonates with the residents and what doesn't, and we want to pass that knowledge on to you. So we put together a marketing asset folder for any utility that decides to participate. This folder has assets including imagery, social media templates, and example email copy that will help you market the program. Anything you need should be in this folder, but if something's missing or if you need assistance, please let us know. We're happy to help. Once you start marketing your program, the goal is to direct your residents to this dedicated program landing page. We have found the less clicks, the better for the resident. This is where the residents will enter in their name, select their utility, and then enter in their account number to verify eligibility. This page will also show the number of controllers remaining for your program, which has proven to keep people on the page and redeem faster. It's sort of like a countdown for how many controllers are left. As you scroll down the page, the resident will see some features and benefits of the controller and also a link to the FAQ page. Now, as you saw on the landing page, we do ask for water account numbers. This is important because this is how we verify that this resident is eligible and will eliminate the same person from trying to purchase multiple times. At the start of the program, we will ask the utility to send over a list of eligible water account numbers. And by eligibility, really, that criteria is set by you. You can set the terms of what eligibility means for your residents, whether they have lived in their home for at least 5 years, or maybe they must not have redeemed a rebate in the last 10. Whatever you set that criteria as, that's where the water account numbers come into play. And then you simply send us a list of water account numbers only. Now, if you don't feel comfortable sharing the water account numbers, that's totally fine. You can actually create unique codes that your residents can use. You can even send us a portion of the account number. It's just important that the resident knows what number to enter into that account number field and to make sure we have the same number on our back end. Now, once a resident comes to the site, they enter in their account number or unique code, whatever you gave them, and our system checks to make sure that we also have that account number or code on our list. If we do, then they get to move forward. If they are not eligible, they get a very polite message saying they are not eligible at this time. Now, as the utility, you will have access to the Rachio portal, which will allow you to see all the account numbers that you sent to us. And then once the program launches, you'll be able to see what account numbers are redeeming in real time. So as you can see in the top left here, this is that nice message they get once they are eligible, and they click shop now, and they are taken to the next page where they are presented the options for their purchase. They can choose either the 8 zone or the 16 zone, depending on what their yard needs. Now we have set a limit, so it is 1 controller per person. They actually will not be able to move forward if they try to select more than 1. If the resident has a controller that is set up outside, we actually offer the weatherproof enclosure right here on this page, so it's easy for them just to add it to their cart. There are a set of terms and conditions that CalWEP has put together for your residents to agree to. Some of those terms include must have an irrigation system, must have Wi-Fi. The full set of terms and conditions can be found on that dedicated FAQ page that I shared at the beginning. The resident must agree to these terms before moving forward. So this program is unique because the utility gets to select a cost share if they'd like to do one. We understand that with COVID, budgets may have been cut. And because of that, even if the utility is not able to do a cost share, the resident will still be getting a discount on the controllers. We were able to offer our controllers at a discounted price for this program at $169.99 for the 8 zone and $189.99 for the 16 zone. That's $60 off MSRP for the 8 zone and $90 off MSRP for the 16 zone, which is a fantastic deal for your residents. Now, if the utility does have budget and decides to do a cost share, you can decide to provide anywhere from $25 off to $100 off. If you'd like, you could even cover the entire cost of the controller. While that sounds amazing, we do recommend that the residents have to pay at least a portion. We have just found there's more involvement and engagement from the resident once they receive the controller. So once you decide the cost share option that you would like to move forward with, you would just let CalWEP know how many controllers you want to distribute, and then you pay upfront for those controllers based on the cost share that you chose. On a monthly basis, Rachio will then invoice CalWEP for the number of controllers redeemed, and then CalWEP just simply takes the money from the funds you already provided from your account. So there's no need to be invoicing back and forth with CalWEP each month. We will let you know when inventory is running low. So using that counter on the landing page, we might say, oh, hey, there's 15 controllers left. Would you like to add more funds? And if you do, great. Just let CalWEP know and us know, and we will add more controllers to your program. And then based on what program that you just decided to go with, the cost share, the resident will actually pay their portion directly on the landing page. There's no more waiting 6 to 8 weeks to get their rebate check in the mail. The discount is already taken into account here, and the resident pays their portion. Now, we have realized that sometimes people come to the site and they leave them a checkout, which is totally normal. Maybe they have to figure out if they have an 8 zone or 16 zone. Maybe they have to check with their partner to make sure that this is the right option for them. But what we have done is we've actually put an email in place that is automated throughout the process. It's basically a reminder for them, hey, you're still eligible. Don't forget to come back and redeem your controller. This is a limited time program. Hurry up, basically. Once the resident does come back and complete their process and redeems their controller, they are sent a completion email. This email provides them support links on how to install, a link to our Rachio community, and just a reminder of some of the terms and conditions they agreed to. The resident will also receive an email with their receipt and tracking information for the controller. So what happens after the resident purchases? Well, we have put together a dedicated email and phone number for your residents. We do know that sometimes customer support is needed post-purchase, pre-installation, or even during installation. The dedicated email is calwep@rachio.com. We want to take the pressure off of the utilities. So if residents start coming to you asking questions about the product or installation, please send them our way. Our customer support team is amazing and very easy to work with. As you can see, our CSAT score is about 95% higher. We also know that sometimes residents need a little bit more training, which is why we offer virtual trainings for these programs. So at any time you feel like, a lot of customers are getting the controller, you'd like to do a virtual training, we're happy to get that set up for you. That will be led by our team and kind of going over the schedule types and how to work the controller best for their lawn and needs. After talking with a lot of utilities, we understand that monthly reporting is an important part of running a program, but it's also very time consuming. So through the portal, you'll actually have the ability to export the redemption report for your program. This allows you to create that report directly in one document, and then you can cross-reference it with any internal data or tracking that you already have. And then since you're paying upfront to CalWEP, there's no need to do any monthly invoicing. With this program, you'll also have access to a Rachio Insights Lite platform. This tool allows you to see all controllers in your service area at an anonymous level. You'll actually be able to filter by this program specifically. So on the main page, you might see all the controllers that were purchased on Rachio.com, Amazon, Home Depot, Best Buy. But then once you filter in for the program specifically, you'll be able to see the controllers distributed right through the program that you are taking part of. Insights allows you to see what schedule type the controllers are on, the crop type, even whether the controller is on or off, and a lot more features. Again, this is all at an anonymous level. However, by using Insights, you might start identifying trends that you want to address. So for example, maybe residents are on a fixed schedule and you want them on a flex monthly. Rachio can help with that change. Just come to us, let us know what change you want to make within your service area. Our marketing team will help draft an email for you. And then Rachio actually sends the email out to that set of customers that we're trying to target and help them make the changes that you want to see. We'll then follow up with a report showing you how successful that engagement was. This is a separate feature, but definitely something our partners enjoy using. So that wraps up the quick tutorial and run through of how we work with utilities on direct distribution programs. Again, your agency might already be eligible for one of our programs through RWA, BOSCA, and now CalWEP. If not, we're happy to launch a dedicated program for you if you're interested. Please don't hesitate to reach out any questions. Again, I am Danielle Cumming, and you can reach me at danielle@rachio.com. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you very much, Danielle, and thanks to Ratio and also to Hunter for those two presentations and for being a sponsor of this conference. My name is Marianne Dickinson with the Alliance for Water Efficiency, and I'm happy to be your moderator for today's urban session, where we're going to discuss regulatory updates on the water conservation framework in California. Just a few little details before we go through a few slides. Just want to make sure you all know that you will be muted and will have no video capability as an attendee in this conference. That's just to make things easier from a bandwidth perspective as well. But we are recording this conference, and so the recording links will be emailed to you as a participant, as a registrant for the conference afterwards, and we'll also be posting the PowerPoint presentations of our speakers. What we'd like to do is just show you a few opening slides, and then we'd like to ask you a few questions. Thanks very much to our platinum sponsors for this conference. Everyone thinks that when you go virtual, it's all free, but actually a virtual conference is even more expensive than an in-person conference is. And so we're very grateful to CoBank, Metropolitan Water District as our platinum sponsors, and Water and Land Solutions and Yosemite Farm Credit as our gold sponsors. We also have a number of other sponsors who have participated and agreed to sponsor this conference, and so you see all of their logos there, including California Water Efficiency Partnership, which you heard a lot about in Danielle's presentation as well. So we're grateful to everybody who has contributed. Next slide then. So just as a little reminder again for the logistics side of it, we hope we won't have the same difficulties that we had this morning with Zoom. Hopefully Zoom only crashes once a week and it'll be fine tomorrow. So we'll see you at 9 a.m. It'll be the same Zoom link that you used this morning for the opening session. And so just wanted to give you a little reminder about that. So before we launch into our terrific speakers, what we'd like to do is ask you a few questions about who you are as our audience, because it's going to help our speakers make sure that we give you the right information that you're interested in. So here's our first question. What does your agency or organization most closely identify as? And there are a series of choices. So we're hoping you will choose an answer for number one.
There's actually two questions in one, so if folks scroll down, the other question.
Oh, right. Right. Okay, so the second question, I didn't, right. So the second question is, how familiar are you with the conservation framework, two pieces of legislation, SB 606 and AB 1668, that will also help our panelists know what level of detail to go in. So thanks, Tia, for mentioning that. There are two questions, and we'd like you to answer both, and then we'll show you the answers. So most of you are retail water providers. Some of you are wholesale. State and federal government looks well represented as well. I'm not surprised we don't have any agricultural folks in the urban session, so that's not a surprise, but interested in who the others are, so let us know in the chat who you are. In terms of how familiar are you, we have about 19 of you, about half our audience, who are very familiar with the provisions of those two bills, and 26% of you are somewhat familiar. So that'll help our speakers. We won't spend a lot of time going through the details of the legislation, but it'll help you know that you are passively familiar with what's in both of those. So at this point, I'd like to launch into our speakers for the day. And very pleased to introduce Arthur Hinojosa, who is the Chief of the Division of Regional Assistance for the California Department of Water Resources. And in that job, his responsibilities include the management of the many local and regional assistance programs that the California Department of Water Resources provides to both promote and support regional water sustainability. These efforts include providing technical and planning assistance to local groups and agencies, drought response, developing and supporting water use efficiency recommendations, administering financial assistance grant programs, environmental restoration, water master services, and surface water, groundwater, and land use data collection, studies, and evaluations. His career spans 29 years. He's a California native, and he graduated from UC Berkeley with a BS degree in civil engineering. Arthur, the floor is yours.
I panicked there for a second. My buttons weren't working. Good morning, everyone. So based on that, and thank you for the introduction, Marianne. Seeing that poll, I'm going to do a quick plug for those of you who aren't familiar with the water use efficiency legislation, SB 606 and AB 1668. I'm going to put a plug in for our primer. This is what we developed with the Water Resources Control Board. It's a nice, there we go. Oh, there we go, that's better. It's a nice approachable way of coming to understand what's in the legislation. It's simple to read, relatively speaking, and has lots of nice graphics to give you a sense of timing and what have you. I'll be talking about some of those aspects in terms of where we're at implementing it. It puts a lot of effort, or puts a lot of the onus on implementing with the department and the State Water Resources Control Board, as well as all the folks that have to actually adhere to the standards that will be developed. As Marianne mentioned, I am the chief of Division of Regional Assistance. And about 3 months ago, I was put in as a placeholder to provide this overview. Typically, the chief of our water use efficiency branch does this. Peter Brostrom retired, however, back in October. And I told Bakala, hey, just put my name down and we'll probably have his replacement on board and we'll just switch it out when the time comes. And as you probably inferred already, that time hasn't come yet. Almost there though. I'm very anxious. I'm very excited that we're nearing that line. But it's provided me the opportunity now to sit in and provide this information, this update with you all. So my apologies if I stumble on a few words. I'm not nearly as versed at this as Peter was, although I'm a lot more versed on it than I was a year ago. So here we go, all right? The primer for we call it Making Water Conservation a California Way of Life, is broken down into several sections. I'm gonna go over a few of them in terms of what it means for implementing legislation. So one of the facets is to use water more wisely. And the department was directed to conduct a number of studies for the urban retail water supply use objectives in coordination with the Water Board and make recommendations for adoption by the Water Board. So indoor residential water use is a big part of this. We're directed to study the current indoor residential water use standard, including benefits and impacts to water, wastewater, and recycled water systems. And with the board, we can make a joint recommendation to the legislature if changes need to be or should be had. We were to do that by January 1, and we're still working with the board to figure out what that's going to be. And hopefully we'll have that out by this summer. The studies, however, are complete, and we're working on a draft report. Some of the studies, one of which Peter will mention later today. Let's see here. Once we've got our recommendations in order, we'll be reconvening our stakeholder meetings. We've had a series of stakeholder meetings with all the facets of our implementation. We'll have another one to review the draft of what we're going to recommend. That'll go through a public reviewing process and the whole bit. So if all goes according to our latest plan, we should have that out come June of this year. Now that's a report to the legislature. The legislature would then have to decide if they want to take our recommendations into account and do any changes to the already existing standards that the legislation has put forth. Predominantly, 55 gallons per person per day as a metric for agencies to measure indoor water use in terms of standard. And that changes to 52.5 by 2025 and to 50 by the year 2030. Another aspect of what we're working on is outdoor residential water use. We're to do studies and standards along that as well. And that's come into two main parts. The first, probably most prominent one in the last year or so, is the landscape area measurement. We're to provide each urban retail water supplier with the data regarding the area of residential irrigable lands. And we're to do that by last month. We're in the process of doing it now. Status, we've supplied provisional, Larry, let me slow down. We have provided provisional landscape area to 269 of about 400 suppliers. That's about 67%. And we should have it all wrapped up to all of them by March. I say provisional because this is our best shot, initial shot at what's out there. The suppliers themselves need to start looking at it and see if what we got right and if there's any tweaks or anything that needs to happen. We also are looking at it continuously, and we might need to make some tweaks ourselves if we find the need. And I say we, I mean the department, but a large part of it is also with our consultants, Quantum Spatial Incorporated, QSI, Eagle Aerial, Formation Environmental, and the Western Policy Research have been helping in a large part to provide this data. And Andrew Brenner is coming up soon to talk about some of the more details of this effort. The landscape area is part of a larger effort to develop outdoor standards, outdoor water use standards. So the department, in coordination with the board, is conducting these studies and investigations on outdoor water use. And we're to recommend standards for outdoor residential use to the board, the Water Resources Control Board, who will then go through a rulemaking process to adopt them. And we have to get that to them by October 1st of this year. So it's underway. We've formed a working group of stakeholders, 34-member various agencies, and the public allowed to participate and listen in. And we had our first meeting of that group in October, sort of just to kickstart it off. And we hope to be plan to be meeting again later this month in February. If you're already part of this group and you haven't gotten a save the date, you should be getting that very soon, today or tomorrow. We'll be convening technical teams to describe the process of how we're even thinking about getting our arms around this, developing an outdoor water standard. We'll be presenting a finding, getting feedback from the working group and stakeholders in the upcoming meeting. We've been working with consultants to gather data such as outdoor water use, historical, ETO, effective precipitation, the landscape area, like I mentioned, and population, big part of it as well. All going to be part of determining this outdoor water use standard. Also part of this effort includes commercial, industrial, and institutional, the other CII that we deal with a lot. Irrigated landscape with dedicated meters. We're having to study and we recommend a standard for that as well. It's similar to the outdoor one. That's also due October 1st to the board for adoption. Right now, we're just in a preliminary data gathering stage. We're conducting some landscape area measurements for a subsample of suppliers on which to extrapolate from. Hopefully that'll go well. We're going to approach the standard very similar to what we're going to do with the outdoor. But like I said, this is not just getting started in many respects in terms of the big push. So we're still getting some work done. No dates in terms of meetings and stakeholder input yet. But the CII performance measures, or rather the performance measures for CNI, that's ongoing now as well. Studies and recommendations. We have to perform, or rather, we have to study the potential. Here we go again. Study the potential performance measures for CNI water use and make recommendations on them. There's the CII classification system. There's thresholds for requiring dedicated landscape meters or in-loop technology, and best management practices for CII customers. That's all due by October 1st to the board for rulemaking. So far, we've got a white paper on some of the classifications that are produced. I think that was shared with that particular water working group last November. And a white paper on best management practices is in progress currently with our stakeholder, our consultant, Maddow Water Management Incorporated. Maddow, sorry, I said that wrong. So an upcoming stakeholder meeting on this topic is also scheduled for later this month. They'll be providing, discussing these papers and providing an outline of the best management practices paper, and there'll be reoccurring monthly meetings after that. The deliverable here is a report to the Water Board by October 1st. As per the water use efficiency legislation, we also have to do some studies on variances and make recommendations to the board on how variances should be incorporated. We've defined 8 variance types that we need that provide estimates if they're unique or have enough material effect on a supplier as water use objective. We have to identify other unique uses that might have a significant effect on additional variances as well. And we'll make recommendations on the data processes and thresholds for variances that could have a significant effect by I can't hear you, but I'm sure you're all saying October 1st. Yes. Studies are currently underway. We've been studying evaporative coolers and seasonal populations impacts. That was presented back in our November work group meeting. We're doing some preliminary screening analysis for irrigation with high TDS recycled water and what a variance might look like for that. And we're doing background gathering on some of the others as well. There's a meeting at the end of next week on this. This is efforts being led by our consultant Stantec, and there'll be reoccurring monthly meetings thereafter as well as we hone in on what these variances look like as a report to the Water Board by October 1st. Now, all these facets, these standards, these variances, the outdoor, the indoor, all are going to be part of an annual urban water use objective. We're studying that as well. We're going to be looking at how this all comes together and making recommendations on guidelines and methods to be used for calculating water use objectives. But this has to kind of wait. Well, it's not waiting entirely, but it's going to depend a lot on how these standards come together and how they mesh. This is also due by the 1st of October. Of course, it's ongoing in the sense that all the other things are rolling up into it. So this will be part of what we're meeting and talking about with some of our stakeholders, work groups as well going forward. Again, a report to be of recommendations to the Water Board by October 1. Other facets of the water use efficiency legislation talks about eliminating waterways. And the department's role here was to make recommendations on the feasibility of putting water loss reporting requirements on urban wholesale water suppliers that already exists for the retail supplier, but what about the wholesaler? So we made these recommendations in a report we put out a year ago now. So that's done, and the report's out there. And so no October deadline yet, that one's done. The report recommended extending the annual water loss reporting requirements to urban wholesale water suppliers, but stopped short of recommending audits be validated as is required by the urban retail water suppliers at this time. Audit validation would require some accurate flow testing on large wholesale delivery meters, which is not currently cost effective or physically feasible for some of them. Nevertheless, we're hoping to pave the way towards enhanced reporting and validation in the future. The report recommends suppliers include in their water loss audits a comprehensive inventory of meters used to quantify sales to other agencies. And we believe, we direct folks to conduct a study on large meter accuracy and how to develop the best management practices and protocols for large meter testing. The report also recommended that the department develop a wholesale water loss audit reporting form and conduct training on how urban wholesaler suppliers could report on the process and best management practices for water loss control programs. Another component to the water use efficiency legislation is a strengthen local drought resilience. And to this extent, the department was directed to report on and recommendations to address drought planning needs of small systems and rural communities. So we were to identify the small systems and the rural communities at risk of drought and water supply shortage, and then make recommendations and provide guidance to address the planning needs of these small systems and rural communities. And this was due a year ago. And currently, the final report is almost across the finish line. We had a draft report out last spring, and as a lot of things affected people's work in 2020, such as ours. So the final report is in final review at the highest levels of the government here. We broke it into two parts to move it through. The first part was talking about the recommendations themselves, and the second part about the assessment, the risk assessment itself, including a tool to sort of assess this. The risk assessment doesn't say or quantify the risk; rather, it gives a sense of the magnitude of risk. Everyone has some risk, and so the tool allowed folks to see how they rate it in terms of this magnitude, with the best information we could provide. It's just a tool for guidance. Folks will then look at where they sit and have to assess based on the information we had, what their best course of action should be. For those of you who are familiar with our draft recommendations report, the final, like I said, is making its way through our upper echelons of our government. But spoiler alert, no significant changes to the recommendations from draft to final. So there's that to look forward to. And that sums it up in terms of the water use efficiency legislation. For those of you who are looking to work on ag management or ag water management plans or urban water management plans. The guidebooks are out, and seminars webinars are occurring to help folks with us as well. It's on the department to start accepting those in the coming months and start reviewing them. So Marianne, that wraps up my bit. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Arthur. Appreciate it. And if you have questions for him, we do want to give you the opportunity to ask them. What we're planning to do is to hold all of the questions until the end of the speaker presentations. And we have a 20-minute period set aside for you to get your questions answered. So as you think of them, please type them in the Q&A area of the Zoom bar down at the bottom of your screen. Don't type them in the chat, type them in Q&A, and we'll be sure to get to them at the end of the session. So thank you very much, Arthur, appreciate it. We'll now move to our next speaker, who is Andrew Brenner. He's going to talk to us about using irrigated landscape analysis to support water conservation. And Andrew directs the water and natural resource management programs for NV5 Geospatial, powered by Quantum Spatial. He has worked on geospatial data analysis for over 25 years, both in the research and commercial environments. He's worked on land cover mapping for over 2 decades and has focused on irrigated landscape mapping since 2012. He has a PhD in environmental physics from Edinburgh University and an undergraduate degree in agriculture from Reading University in the UK. So Andrew, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. You can see the screen, you can see me, and you can hear me. I'm happy with the technology. So first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the program that we've been working with the California DWR over the last 2 years. I work for a company called Quantum Spatial. We're going through a transition to NV5 Geospatial. So you may hear that name as well. And we work with our partners, Eagle Aerial Solutions, Jasmine Malloy, Wayne Tate, which many of you have interacted with. So really, this program has been going for a couple of years. We've been working on irrigated veg for about 8-9 years. And so what I wanted to do in the next few minutes is really give you a quick overview of, landscape area, why it matters in terms of urban water use, how we classify it, what are the outputs from the program. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on the methods, but I'm happy at any time to talk ad infinitum on those methods to anybody who's interested. Handle a few of the frequently asked questions that get asked almost at every presentation on this. Touch on the review portal that allows the water districts to look in at their own data, and then wrap up with sort of how the data can be used for water conservation decision making. So, why is landscape area so important? Obviously, water loss is important altogether, but landscape area is a real loss to the hydrologic system. Water use that's used inside the house gets sort of recycled through the system, but once the water is irrigated, it generally is lost through the system through evapotranspiration. So it's very important that we use the water use in a very efficient fashion. So the goals are not to really enforce landscape rules, but to make sure that the water being applied is applied at an appropriate level. So I think everyone can agree that it makes sense to apply water that is needed and not over apply that water. It also helps us understand if there's leakages in the system at the parcel level. So if we can compare the water use against the actual expected water use, we can identify where there's a disconnect. Obviously, the demand is going to vary significantly from region to region based on climatic conditions, and that's dealt with within the system. The program, the landscape area program, is focused on quantifying the amount of area that is covered by different landscape types. And the main landscape types we're talking about are irrigated, irrigable, not irrigated. So irrigated and irrigable, not irrigated constitute the irrigable, and then not irrigable. And so if we look at the image on the left, we can see that we have a nice green lawn. We could obviously irrigated. On the right-hand side, we see an area that is a lawn, probably has irrigation infrastructure, but the landowner has decided, for whatever reason, not to irrigate that area. Within the legislation, that is considered an irrigable area, and so should have an allowance associated with it. This makes a lot of sense from a water use perspective. It makes it a little more complicated from a classification perspective. From a classifications perspective, we have to say, how is this land used, and not just what does this land look like? So area of bare earth in this context it should be irrigable. Area of bare earth in sort of an area outside or parkland or in a natural land, obviously, or a parking lot should not get an irrigation allowance. And so it's important to understand the context of this land surface in order to quantify it in terms of whether it's irrigable or whether it's not irrigable. Obviously, structures, undeveloped land, open water are considered not irrigable. And then we have a couple of special cases where the decision could be made on whether they get an irrigation allowance. Art talked a little bit about variances. For example, horse corrals need water to be applied in order to keep dust down. Artificial turf may be considered to be required in the allowance or may not. We've been working on this project for a couple of years, and we are starting to wrap up. As Art indicated, the data is going out to the water districts. This chart is a couple of weeks old, but the classification was completed at the end of 2021, and we're doing the final model, and everything will be distributed by the end of March 2021. Data distribution is ongoing. The data that we're working with is 2018. It was collected midsummer in order to identify dry areas from wet areas. Obviously, if we have imagery collected during a wet period, it's difficult to understand whether it's irrigated or whether it's just rain-fed. And then we break this into single-family residential and multifamily residential. These labels are coming from the assessor database. And so to a certain extent, we are limited by the quality of the assessor database as to how well these parcels are labeled. The data is available to all the water districts and any state collaborators, but it is a licensed data set. In general terms, what we're doing is we're taking an image data set, we're bringing in a lot of other information about those parcels, and we're classifying each area within that image into a land use class, an irrigated land use class, whether it's irrigable, whether it's irrigated, whether irrigable, not irrigated, or whether it's not irrigable. Now, in order to get there, we break it into about 27 classes in order to say, okay, here is a car that's sitting on area of pavement as opposed to a car that's sitting on a lawn. And there's a lot of contextual modeling that goes into that in order to pull out the things that we're not interested in to focus in on the things that we are interested in. Again, there's a lot of thought processes going into this. There's many presentations out there that will give you the details on how we get to this final situation. We have focused on ensuring that at the water district level, that there is no bias. In other words, we're not saying your allowance is higher or lower than it should be, and that the accuracy is within 95% of an independently assessed data set. We have this system that allows us to continually improve the models to get the accuracy to meet that 95% accuracy before the data is passed on to California DWR. But we definitely recommend everybody, when they get the data, to look at that and understand and feel confident in the information that's being provided. So this gives you the accuracy. Then from that, you'll have at the district level the ability to, these are just percentages, each different districts broken down into II, irrigable, irrigated, irrigable, not irrigated, and not irrigable. As you can see, there's a huge variation in the percentage of land that falls into each of these classes. You'll be able to analyze that for your particular water district. The other data set that gets provided is one that provides an estimate. Again, it is using a model, is an estimate at the parcel level. The accuracy, 95% accuracy, is at that district level. So some of these parcels will be slightly below, some of them will be above what they actually are, but on average, they'll average out at the district level. But for each parcel, you'll get an irrigable irrigated estimate, an irrigable not irrigated estimate, and not irrigable estimate that allows you to look at which parcels have the largest areas of irrigable or irrigated lands. So in terms of deliverables as part of the program, you're going to receive a district-wide summary report. It will outline the methods. It will break it down into a great deal of information on each part of the process, including accuracy assessment and metadata. That report is about 30 pages long. It's got a lot of information in there, but will give you the information you need to understand the data at a district level. You'll also be provided a geospatial representation where you've got parcel level estimates for each parcel, single family, multifamily, within your area. So there are many questions that often get asked at this point in the process. I'm happy to elaborate on these. But some of the questions that get asked is, are parkway strips included in the estimate? If we go back to how we're building this data set, we require a parcel boundary. So the parcel boundary is the unit of analysis. So if a parkway strip is included in that parcel boundary, then it is included in the estimate. If a parkway strip is not included and is in that right of way of the road, it will not be included. We realize that for specific parcels, this might make a difference, and that's going to be something that each district will have to make a decision on. But overall, at a district level, and again, these estimates are focused at the district level, our assessment, or working with California DWR, is that it is relatively small. Do areas compensate for slope? Again, at the parcel level, this might be important, but at the district level, the magnitude of that effect is considered relatively small, so it has not been corrected for slope. Do these data include dedicated irrigation meters? And Art touched on the dedicated irrigation meter question. As I explained before, we're working off the assessor parcel data set, and so the labeling of a parcel will depend on where it falls within that assessor coding. So if there's a dedicated irrigation meter that is serving a residential area, for example, a multifamily residential area, that will be included in the estimate. Whereas if it's one that's serving a CII area, it will not be included. Do these data include CII? CII parcels were excluded, so it will not include CII information. And then, do these numbers accommodate well water or recycled water use? Again, those are sort of special items that will be dealt with separately, so they are not in the totals. So these data are coming to you fast and furious. Everybody will be getting those over the next few months. And one of the things that we want everybody to do is look at the data And we've set up a verification portal. This is being managed by Eagle Aerial Solutions, and you've probably been reached out to talk about this. And there's really three elements that need to be verified. One is the service area boundary. We went to all the districts. We had a sign off on the service area boundary. That's what we've been using to bound the assessment. We want to look at which parcels are included and then which parcels are disputed. And it also gives you an ability to look at the data. This is part of the program, no cost to any of the districts. You're of course able to look at the data within your own GIS systems, but this allows you to provide feedback to the program team. So the first one is service area boundary. So we've taken the service area boundary, we have built it in there, we've got the imagery in there that we used, and everybody can then look at, does that include the boundary that that we submitted? Has things changed since we submitted it? Is there anything that's different? And within this, we can see information on the overall surface area, totally irrigated area, totally irrigable area, not irrigable area within that your district. The second thing is that we have to understand which parcels are being served by each district in order to come up with the allowance. And so we've got looking at which parcels are included and which ones aren't included. So we bring on the parcel layer. And within that parcel layer, each one of these has an object. And then within each object, we can click on that and we can look at the individual numbers for each parcel also. So you got, again, the total area, the irrigable area, the irrigated area. So you can look at that information. Now, what we found for some of the districts is that there was overlap. So there were certain districts certain parcels that were claimed by two districts, and we're calling those disputed parcels. And this website allows each district to go in and identify whether what they think belongs to them actually belongs to them and resolve that. What you should know is that any disputed parcels have not been included in the total. And so resolving that will help improve the estimate of the final numbers. So our disputed parcel, we're going to zoom into this area here. So we have these disputed parcels. A district can go in, identify that parcel and say, yes, that is part of ours, or it's not part of ours. So once we've done that, you have your data set, you have your estimates, just a quick overview of what we can do with the data. We're going to have those district summaries. We're going to have estimates of irrigated and irrigable areas. With that information, we can look at the ET factor, so based on the climate zone that you're in, and then come up with the outdoor water allowance. And so we also have a boundary, the confidence interval boundary around that mean. So you can say, well, what's the min and the max within that? So that information gives you information at that district level. At the parcel level, the data again is an estimate, but it will tell you which parcels are the largest, have the largest areas of irrigated and irrigable areas. And then if you integrate that with your water use, you can then start doing some sophisticated estimates of where water is being used efficiently and where it's being used inefficiently. So to sort of wrap up the program, the Landscape Area Measurement Program is designed to provide that baseline of analysis. One of the questions comes up, well, what happens if land use changes? And land use was always changing. Those are things that will be dealt with. We understand that the landscape area is changing and there will be the opportunity to update that baseline. But what the idea here is that we're providing a baseline that is consistent across the whole of the state. The data is becoming available. It can be reviewed. Some people have already identified some parcel labeling issues that can be included. We have built the system so it is flexible. So if parcels have been dropped out in the initial assessment, they can be added in. This data review step is very critical. And then really it starts to allow us to identify where to prioritize any sort of water conservation effort. We understand which areas are being irrigated significantly, and then which areas are going to be the greatest targets or the most optimal targets for water conservation. So I ran very quickly through the program. Please feel free to reach out to myself, Andrew Brenner, MV5 Quantum Spatial, or Wayne Tate at Eagle Area Solutions. We work very closely together to really bring this program to California. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And you have some questions in the question and answer area. We can either save them for the end, or you can answer them if you like, typing to go to take care of some of them. But I think we're going to switch gears now. We're still going to be talking about the water conservation framework, but now we're going to switch to indoors. And our next speaker is Peter Mayer. He's going to talk to us about the 2020 Indoor Residential End Use Study. And he is the principal and founder of the firm Water DM. He's a professional engineer and urban water expert who has dedicated his career to advancing the science of water management. For more than 25 years, Peter's work has focused on urban water management, integrated resource planning, water use patterns, assessing the impact of water rate structures and metering systems, evaluating water conservation measures and programs, forecasting future demand with and without conservation, water loss control, preparing water conservation plans, and conducting water supply scenario analysis. Over his career, Peter has worked with hundreds of water utilities and organizations across the US and Canada, and he's a very valued technical advisor to the Alliance for Water Efficiency. Peter, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in this conference and for joining a presentation about residential indoor water use at a landscape conference. I argued that well, this might not be the perfect fit, but Marianne was very insistent that this was important research. And upon putting it together, I kind of agree. I'm going to tell you about what was really a small residential end use study, which was part of the larger indoor residential end use study, which Department of Water Resources put together. And then I'm going to show you what I think is some really exciting, interesting data from Flume covering across the state of California. So first, let's talk about the residential end use study that was conducted in Folsom, California. So under the section of the Water Code that we've been talking about, the Department of Water Resources has been required to conduct a lot of research, both on indoor and outdoor water use. And we have studied indoor water use, let me tell you, up the wazoo. Our team leaders, Sabrina Cook and Shem Steiger, really have done a fabulous job and have now become remarkable experts, because we've looked at this, we've looked at indoor water use from monthly data, from hourly AMI data, and then also from what I'm going to be telling you about today from high resolution end use data. And really all of these approaches kind of remarkably settled on a very similar result with some, variability. There is definitely variability in indoor use across the state of California. There's no question about that. The average across the state of California is right in the neighborhood of 50 gallons per person per day indoors, a little bit less, a little bit more, depending. But then it varies tremendously by region. That's one of the key things. I'm not going to be talking today, though, about all of those findings. Those are going to be coming in much later. But I did want you to know that this is an important research that's going on, and indoor water use has been studied with remarkable rigor, I just want to say, across the state of California, more than anything that I've ever seen before. So the end-use disaggregation that I'm going to be talking about used the Flume device, which is this consumer device which can be purchased. You can buy one on Amazon for, I believe it's about $200. And it straps to the water meter, just like in the picture, just like the old Brainerd data loggers did. The difference with the Flume device is that it has this bridge, this connector, which you plug in inside the home, and then it connects to the Wi-Fi. So the old data loggers were limited that they could only collect data for 2 weeks at a time. The Flume devices can collect data continuously. And so for the Folsom pilot study, we were able to collect 30 days of continuous data using the Flume devices and disaggregate 30 days of data into end uses. Now, if you followed along the history of residential end use studies, you'll know that that most of our residential end use studies have been conducted using a data logger device that was manufactured by a company called FS Brainerd, which has worked very well, but it was an expensive device that was very limited in the amount of memory that it and its memory capacity. It could only hold about 2 weeks of data at a 10-second interval. That's really no longer a problem. And the other thing, the data logger was over $2,000 retail, I think. And so now we have a device that's less than $200 that can collect continuous data. So it's really an order of magnitude difference. So we were able to collect the 30 days. The timing of the research was late June to early August. Key thing, these were volunteer participants. I'm not claiming this is at all a representative sample. It is quite interesting, though, that the results were similar to other representative samples, but this was no way was designed as a representative sample. The other thing, I want to give credit to the team that did the disaggregation for this project. So Flume has developed the hardware, and they are in the process of developing the software for doing disaggregation. They have a lot of it developed, actually. But for the project that we did for DWR, we needed a team that actually could break it into end uses. And so we worked with this group in Australia, Autoflow, that came out of the Griffith University team. And this is a screenshot from their software, very similar to what TraceWizard used to do. And so they actually did the disaggregation. So from 20 houses, 30 days of data, 525,000 individual water use events. So let's get to the results. So just on the summary level, the indoor and outdoor during this time period in the middle of summer of 2020, was 83% outdoor and just 17% indoor. I don't think that's a big surprise at all there. The distribution of indoor and outdoor use, though, was quite interesting. So this plot shows every single day. So there were 20 houses times 30 days. And so it's about 600 days. Of data for indoor and outdoor. So the indoor uses are pretty nicely distributed, or daily indoor around a log normal distribution. The outdoor, though, we have 0 days, very few 0 days. About 5% of the days were 0 outdoor days, and then it goes all the way up from maybe just 25 gallons or 50 gallons of use of outdoors, from a hose. Through automatic system runs of more than 1,000 gallons per day or more. So that's the kind of diversity and range that you see on just a daily basis of water use during the summertime, which is fairly remarkable. If we look at the indoor per capita, and frankly, indoor was the primary focus of this study because we really were interested. Ideally, this is sort of to prove the concept that this technique would work, and then the hope is that it will be expanded to broader samples. So on the indoor side, for this particular sample, the average was 50.8, almost 51 gallons per person per day indoors. I'll do some comparisons with the residential end use study so you can see how it compared overall. But just a couple of highlights. Leakage was still present. And so we still were finding that, about 10%, 11% of indoor use was leakage. Now, again, some of that leakage could have been in an irrigation system, but at this point, we classify all leakage as indoors. The largest indoor use was showering, but it was almost equally tied with clothes washers. And then faucets. So this is slightly different, I think, than the last residential end use study. If we do the comparison, here we have Folsom, California, 20 houses, then the reuse 2, which is about 700 houses from a whole bunch of different cities. So the houses in Folsom were more efficient indoors, but it was kind of similar, interestingly, within a couple of gallons per capita per day on some areas. The biggest areas of difference were in this other miscellaneous category. So this sample included evaporative cooling and some other things that were less common among this. The other difference here was in clothes washers. Folsom's about half the clothes washer usage. And so those made up the biggest differences in indoor per capita use. Looking at toilet flushes in particular, so here's the distribution of flushes. So most of the flushes in these 20 houses in Folsom are now in the low flow, ULF, or even into the ultra ULF range, the 1.2 range. And then still, a few occasionally less frequently used larger toilets. So this is the way things are going to go. We're going to slowly get rid of the old ones. It's going to take us a long time, but they are going to eventually go away. Just in terms of the averages, they're way more efficient in Folsom. 1.5 gallons per flush was the average versus 2.6. So we had a lot more older toilets in the end use study. But here's the key thing. Flushing frequency. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit because I haven't gotten into the fact that this was recorded during COVID. And there is no question that COVID and stay-at-home has had a substantial impact on residential water use. And I'm going to show some other data to get at that. But I think this particular number shows pretty much what's going on. And that is people are flushing at home instead of flushing at work. And so in Folsom, it was 8.5 flushes per person per day versus the 5.0 flushes per person a day, which we've measured consistently in 2 different end use studies. But because the toilets are so dang efficient, the average daily per capita use for toilets was still lower in Folsom than it was even though they were flushing it more frequently. So that shows you the power of efficient flushing. In terms of showering, we also saw more showering. So in the end use study, the average showers per person per day was 0.7. And in the Folsom study, it was 1.1. So more evidence of people staying at home more. The actual showers themselves were not all that different. 2.1 gallons per minute, maybe a little bit longer. Overall, the average volume of the showers was 13.3 versus 11.1. But with that sample size too, you only have 20 homes versus many. These I would consider to be fairly similar. But again, people preferring to shower at generally these lower flow rates, and including a median flow rate in Folsom of 1.6. So we had some real low flow shower heads that people were utilizing. Clothes washers and dishwashers. So in the residential end use study, the clothes washers were the device that had resulted in the biggest savings, more than toilets actually overall, versus the first end use study. For this one, it's interesting to see, I think clothes washers may be slowing down because the average gallons per load was 24.3 versus 28. So what I'm seeing with clothes washers is that, yes, they make more efficient models. It's harder to get these smaller, more efficient models. I myself had a hard time finding a small, efficient one, that was affordable versus it's just cheaper to get, one with 4.5 cubic feet, which uses 25 or 22 gallons per load. So to the extent that we're going to get everybody down, down to 15, 12 gallons per load remains to be seen. And also a lot will relate to the policy at the federal level. In terms of the loads per person per day, this is the one that went sort of perhaps counter to the COVID argument, because previously in the end use study, we had found about 0.3 loads per person per day, and here is about 0.2 loads per person per day, so fewer loads per person per day by a little bit. For dishwashers, though, more loads per person per day in Folsom by quite a lot versus the end use study, 0.4 versus 0.1. So that's like 4 times more. And dishwashers do appear to be getting more efficient. Just that small difference, 4.2 versus 6.1, won't make a huge volumetric difference at the end of the year, but maybe across the utility it would. Okay, and then daily leakage. So leakage remains, this ubiquitous thing that and I want to point out that the data that we're starting to see from multiple Flume devices is that leakage is an infrequent problem for many homes. New homes still leak, maybe not as much, but it really is this thing that, and we've got to figure out a way to go after it. I think we're starting to get the technologies to do it. So this is the daily leakage. Oh, and one thing I want to point out is the people who participated in this Folsom study did not have access to the Flume app. So they were not using their Flume device to detect leakage like many other people who just buy the device. So the key thing is that most of the time there's no leakage. So more than 45% of the time there was zero leakage, everything is great. But that means that more than 50% of the time there's some leakage going on. Most of the leakage tends to be small, on the order of 5 to 15 gallons per household per day. But you do get these egregious days of leakage where leakage gets to be more than 100 gallons per household per day. I would argue that those are the days that you're going to try to alert about and try to first solve as those high leakage days, and then slowly we'll attack the other ones and figure out if we can get after that and reduce some of the high volume leakage. All right, so what we have here was a small 20 homes, but I think significant end use study, because a lot more data are going to become available in the very near future. The other thing was that the speed with which this project was completed and the speed with which the data were analyzed. So this study completed 30 days of continuous data and disaggregated it all, just within a few months. Whereas the end use studies that I had worked on previously had taken more like years to complete. So I think we're seeing a real transformation in the technology and in the software. Flume now has more than 5,000 of their units installed across California in single family homes. And I wanted to show you some data from that. Now, these are not randomly distributed. They are clustered. They're all over the place, but they are spread out across the state. And they do present some interesting analysis. So I'm going to show you data now from approximately those 5,000 devices over 2020. This is the average per capita use going through the year across all the devices that were active during each month. Now, I know that per capita use is not a very useful way of looking at outdoor water use, but in this case, it's helpful because it shows you the comparative amount of water that households are using for indoor and outdoor use on a per capita basis. And you can see, of course, the curve. Outdoor use in California, though, is occurring in all months of the year. That's important to understand, although it certainly peaks in the summertime. The other thing I want you to look at is this green line of indoor use. Indoor use starts at 50 gallons per person per day on average. And then COVID hits in March and April. I'm going to show the next chart that really shows this in remarkable detail. But it goes way up in April during the major stay-at-homes. It stays up there and it never goes back to 50, and it settles back down. And this is going to be really interesting for us to pay attention to what's going to happen in the coming year. So here is indoor daily per capita use, the range across all of these flume devices across California, averaged for each month. So this is the average for January. What you're seeing with these boxes, the dark blue box part is 50% of the data. So 50% of the data is in this dark blue part. This whisker is the other 25% that's ending up here at the peak. And then the lower whisker is the lowest 25 that's ending down at the minimum. So in January of 2020, before COVID, most people were using less than 50 gallons per person per day indoors, with notable exceptions, but that's where it was. And then look what happens in April. It just goes crazy. The dramatic change in indoor use in response to staying at home, and then it really never goes back down. You see various changes, and we've done analysis where you can correlate this, and then finally into December, where it's never quite the same. I think Marianne's going to give me the time that I'm running out of time here, but that's good because that was my last slide. And so thank you all very much. I hope this was interesting, and be happy to answer questions when we have time for that.
Thank you, Peter. And yes, there will be questions for you. I can guarantee that. So we just have one more presentation to finish before we go to our question session. And our last presenter is Dave Roberts. He's going to talk to us about a utilities experience in complying with the framework. He is the Resource Conservation Manager for Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. He has degrees in business, biology, and botany, and has had the opportunity to work for state and local governments, private industry, and nonprofit organizations. He's worked on conservation programs for his entire career, including watershed-wide planning efforts, such as leading the development of the Lake Tahoe Total Maximum Daily Load and large-scale invasive species programs spanning several counties. He's a California native who has lived almost equally in both Northern and Southern California and is familiar with water issues across the state. Dave.
Thank you, Marianne. Appreciate that. It's always been kind of a life ambition of mine, actually, to have you introduce me at one of these conferences. So finally get to take that off my bucket list. So thanks everybody for the opportunity.
Dave, quickly, I want to interrupt. Can you go up to display settings and hit swap display? We're seeing your presenter ones, and if you swap it, we will see your full screen.
Oh, yep. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you everyone for the opportunity to present to you today and share with you what it is that we are doing here at Las Virgenes Municipal Water District to address the conservation framework. So these are the topics that I'm going to discuss today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the district, just to give you some context about the district and our size and where we operate. I'm just going to touch real briefly on the conservation framework. There's a couple of items in there that are specific to us that I am going to bring up in the presentation, one of which is our pure water facility, which is a potable reuse project that we have going here in the district, which is going to be one of the largest conservation programs that we've ever implemented here at the district. And so that does have some impact for the conservation framework. And then we've just recently started our advanced metering infrastructure installation project. Both the pure water facility and the AMI project were decided upon somewhat independently of the conservation framework, but both of those contribute heavily to our compliance with the framework as well. And then I'll get into the comprehensive water conservation plan, which is our plan for directly reaching out to customers to help them to conserve more water. So a little background on the district. I won't go to all these points, but I will mention that the district was formed in 1958. The areas that we supply listed there were very small communities when back in 1958, and in large part because there was no water here. So that was before the Metropolitan Water District tapped into the California Water Project. Having said that, it provided us also with the opportunity, since we are both a potable and sanitary water service provider, that we were able to expand our Purple Pipe network as our communities grew. So we have very large recycled water distribution system here in the district. I will also mention that we are a budget-based rate district. So we started doing budget-based rates back in 2019, largely in anticipation of the framework and what we saw on the horizon. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, here we go. Okay, so here's the map of our service area. We go all the way up. So to give you some context, we're right at the border of the Los Angeles County and Ventura County lines. So the blue area here is Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. The green area up here is Triunfo Sanitation and Water District. We have a joint powers agreement with them for sanitary sewer services. So this is Tapia Water Reclamation Facility. And then the black area here is the outline for Malibu Creek Watershed, which discharges, you'll see down here in the right-hand corner, just north of Malibu Pier, famous Surfrider Beach in the Malibu Lagoon. So this was one of the large drivers for the Pure Water Project, because our MPDS permit is prohibiting us from discharging into Malibu Creek come 2030. So that was the large stakeholder process that we initiated to come up with a solution for what we do with our excess recycled water. And that will now become potable water that will be stored here in our West Lake Village reservoir. All of the biosolids that are produced here at Tapia get pumped up to our Rancho Las Virgenes facility, which is a composting facility. So all of our bio-waste is actually recycled into Class A compost that's free to all of our customers. And we also have some bulk accounts that we sell to. So none of our biosolids are transported off-site. And then also I will mention that we recently completed a 5 megawatt solar field, which powers Tapia, the compost facility, and much of our purple pipe pumping system as well. So we have a long history of conservation, both for water, but also a little bit more broader mindset with regard to reducing our carbon emissions and trying to reuse and recycle what it is that we produce, both in terms of biosolids and recycled water. So I won't go too much into, I mentioned the framework information here, but I will just mention real quickly that there is a bonus for potable water reuse, which we're anticipating taking advantage of. And also, as I mentioned, I think having our budget-based rates implemented back in 2019 has really given us a leg up on how the framework is going to be implemented. So Pure Water Project, Las Virgenes Triunfo, flagship project for us. We just recently opened up a demonstration facility back in September. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to take full advantage of that as a result of COVID, but we are hoping to use it for educational purposes to help people become more comfortable with the idea of drinking purified recycled water. As I mentioned, Tapia produces a fair amount of recycled water. Most of that is distributed through our purple water system. We do have excess water in the wintertime, and so that water then gets discharged into Malibu Creek, and that is about 4,000 acre feet per year that we discharge into Malibu Creek. And then all of that will now become potable water stored in our reservoir, and we get a 2,000 acre feet per year bonus for having a potable water system, potable reuse water system. So here's how our matrix or suite of water sources pans out before and after the Pure Water Project is fully implemented. And again, we're hoping to have that done roughly 2027, but we need to have it done by 2030. So we are now going to be having 20% of our potable water supplied through our purified water system. So that's kind of exciting news for us. And we do get a little bit of credit for that in the conservation framework. So moving on, our advanced metering infrastructure project just began last week. We're going to be replacing approximately 22,000 single-family residential meters with smart meters. The big advantage to this is that it allows, as Peter was just explaining, all of that type of information is going to be readily available to customers on an app. So they'll know how much water they're using outdoors. They'll know how much water they're using for washing clothes, for taking showers, all of that information. So they'll become much more familiar with how they use water, which is going to be, I think, very informative. The other thing that's a real advantage is the rapid leak detection. And so customers will get noticed rapidly when a leak is detected. We also will be noticed. So we will have a leak detection report that will be generated. So we can reach out to those customers if we see that that leak has not been addressed within a certain period of time. So the 2022 Comprehensive Water Conservation Plan, we do this every 2 years. We report to our board every spring. So we either bring to them the updated conservation plan or a report on the progress being made on the existing plan. So these are all of the plan elements that we have within the Comprehensive Water Conservation Plan. I'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail, particularly our Landscape Conservation Initiative, and then also the Smart Irrigation Controller Program, which we launched back in 2019. So that program has been extremely well received. Originally, that program was targeting wasteful water users, and that classification is people that use over 200% of their budget. So originally, we're going to just have that program be only for our wasteful water users. Our board wanted to provide a little bit of additional opportunity for folks to participate in the program. So we settled on an 80-20% ratio. So 80% would be reserved just for our wasteful water use customers. And then those customers that became aware of the program that were not wasteful water users could also avail themselves of the program as well. You'll see over on the table on the right there that we almost nailed that percentage or that ratio. And so we did that by emailing only wasteful water use customers. If other customers became aware of the program, then they could take advantage of the program, but we did not do any broad scale advertisement of the program. It was only just those wasteful water users that we had emails for that we reached out to. That program was both a controller and a professional installation, and it was free of charge to all of our customers. And so through that program, we distributed over 2,000 controllers. We started up a new program just 2 weeks ago, kind of the update of this program. We are now making it available to all of our customers. And so there will be a $99 cost share for our customers, but it will be available for all of them. Our preliminary analysis of reduction in or conservation as a result of the program, from the program that we had just completed, our wasteful water use customers were saving about 23,000 gallons of water per year on average. Our customers that weren't in that classification were saving about 9,000 gallons of water per year. And so that was one of the incentives for us to open the program up to all of our customers, because we became a little bit more comfortable that by providing it for all of our customers, that it would assist them in conserving water as well. And then we also had a fairly significant reduction in the amount of over budget water used. So for those wasteful customers that participated in the program, we had about 41% reduction in wasteful water use in that group, as compared to 12% reduction in those customers in that same classification that did not avail themselves of the program. So in our district, we estimate that about 70% of our potable water is used for outdoor irrigation. I mentioned in the pure water slide that all of our indoor water use is going to be recycled either through purple pipe or as potable reuse. And then our other programs are focusing more specifically on outdoor irrigation, since that is such a large component of water use, and we are unable to recover that water use. So we looked at a whole bunch of different similar types of programs around our area. Those are programs that have the greatest longevity and that are most successful tend to be more regional programs than district-specific programs. And so we began to reach out to local nonprofit organizations to develop a partnership so that we could provide that information on a more regional basis. And so we're starting up a partnership with Tree People, Mountain Restoration Trust, and the Malibu Foundation. Malibu Foundation has offered to buy a greenhouse. They've also offered to fund all of the startup costs for that. And then we are in the process right now of hopefully allowing for them to put that greenhouse at our Rancho Las Virgenes facility, with the idea being that what we would like to start is a program similar to Garden in a Box, which is a program started by Resource Central in Boulder, Colorado. And what that program does is it provides prepackaged gardens for customers that they purchase. What those prepackaged gardens provide for is they give, we're getting a thumbs up from Peter. Great program. Everybody that looks at the program absolutely loves it. It was actually a very easy sell to the Malibu Foundation. Those 100-square-foot gardens come with a planting design. They come with all of the plants, and it helps to take a lot of the apprehension off of customers that would otherwise not know what plants to plant or how to arrange them. They're also in manageable size. So a 100-square-foot garden, 10 foot by 10 foot, they can buy multiple of these. They can buy just one. They can, approach the conversion process at their own pace. So we're really excited. I'm actually speaking to the JPA board this evening on this project. So we are actively developing it, which is great news. One of the other services that we provide, and we're hoping to expand it, is our one-on-one consultations. This is coordinated through both our field customer service staff, and then also we're hiring a new position that is currently being advertised right now, so that we can expand that program. And again, we're going to focus on our most wasteful customers, trying to reach the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, so that we also see the greatest conservation in water by approaching that group of folks. And then we're going to have our leak detection reports from AMI, and we'll be reaching out to those customers that we do see that have leaks, and using that as an opportunity to get our foot in the door so that we can go talk with those folks. Typically, when we do these, we like to have the landscaper present as well, so that we can talk to the landscaper about irrigation practices, and then have that opportunity to dialogue both with customers and with landscapers as well. Water loss prevention, another big part of the framework. We're really going to be expanding our efforts for water loss prevention. AMI is going to have a huge effect on our water loss audit score because we do not have a robust meter testing program right now. So our data validity score for meters is relatively low. We did that on purpose because we knew that we were going to be moving towards AMI. So we didn't have a very robust meter testing program. We have a very hilly district, so we also have high water pressure in some of our areas. So we're going to be looking at ways that we can manage that. And we're going to be bringing a team of folks together so that we have a water loss prevention team that will help to develop a water loss prevention plan, which will address those issues and help to achieve those goals. And so as Andrew mentioned, we have actually been an early implementer of the WaterView software. This software is going to allow for us to track what the water allocation is and where we are relative to the DWR water allocation for our district. Allows us to target specific customer groups. And then most importantly, from my perspective, is that it's really going to aid in reporting for regulatory reporting as required through the framework as well. And so some of the neat things, and Andrew began to allude to this, that we've seen here in our district as we compare the DWR data to our data. As I mentioned, we've been doing budget-based rates since 2019. So we have a very accurate and detailed GIS layer of both, obviously, our different land use classifications, but also irrigated area. We don't have an irrigable area classification. It's either irrigated or not irrigated. I would imagine that we're going to have similar discrepancies as what we're seeing here on irrigated area. And so what we're illustrating here is the blue area are those areas. And we were also one of the pilot programs for DWR data. So we did get this information a little bit sooner than what the larger population of agencies in the state is receiving theirs. So what you'll notice here is blue areas are what DWR is calling single family residential, which we do not classify as such. The red areas are what we call single family residential, which DWR did not recognize. And the areas of purple are areas that we have agreement in our data set. So this will be helpful as we begin to review the data layer from DWR and start to decide how it is that we address some of these types of issues. And then education and outreach, ubiquitous, as I'm sure for all of the agencies that do water conservation. The picture on the right is kind of my, how would I phrase it? My, they call it my baby. That is our new demonstration garden that is directly adjacent to our pure water facility, which is going to provide an excellent opportunity for us to educate people about what it is that we're doing to recycle water that you use in your home, but what the customer can also do to reduce water use outside. And so what we're also hoping to do is expand the message and education about water conservation beyond just save water, save money, that moving towards more native landscapings or climate appropriate landscapings provide opportunities for wildlife habitat, forage and cover. They integrate more nicely with the local community, being here in the Santa Monica Mountains. And that actually is being very well received by customers. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to expand on that effort through the Garden in the Box type program as well. So I think, Mary Ann, with that, if anybody has any questions and they would like to reach out to me, share your ideas as to what your districts are doing, please do so. And with that, Mary Ann, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. I think we have about 15, 16 minutes for questions, and we have some in the question box. So at this point, I'd like everybody the speakers to turn on their cameras and their microphones. And let's go and look at the questions that we have. So the first question we have in the question and answer box is for Andrew. It's from Martha Davis. You mentioned that the county land use classifications exist, but that is frequently different from the water agency's classifications. How is this problem going to be addressed?
That is a really good question. So one of the this has been a challenge. Actually, Dave came up with that in his last presentation too. So I appreciate that. The legislation is talking about residential. So we've got to define residential, whereas the water district billing system tends to say, okay, this is dedicated irrigation meter. And that dedicated irrigation meter could be serving a residential, it may be serving something else. I think that there is some need to standardize the way that we're calling parcels. With single family residential, it's probably much less of a problem. With multifamily residential, I imagine there's going to be some confusion. We are aware of this issue. And it is something that we have been discussing, with Peter before he left, and also now with Michaela and California DWR. So I don't think we have everything sorted out yet, but there will be at some juncture a need to bring together the land use descriptor and the billing system. And that's definitely something where we don't have a really straight path, but it is identified as being an issue that is under discussion right now. So it's one we're aware of. It's something that we've been discussed, but I can't say this is the solution to it right now.
Okay, thank you. The next two questions are for Peter. William Granger is asking both of them. The first one is, on the toilet chart that you showed us, where would a 1.28 gallon per flush toilet fall?
Okay, so I think I'm going to show that chart, and hopefully
we see it.
I'm going to see if I can get it even on the full screen. Imagine that. So this is the graph. So the way that this thing works is that 0 is just 0, but 0 to 0.5 would be here. And then, so 1 represents 0.5 to 1 gallon. And then, so 1.28 flush per toilet would be here in the 1.5 bin, the bin between 1 gallon and 1.5. And a 1.6 gallon per flush toilet would be here in this next one up between 1.5 and 2.
Okay, got it. All right, you might want to show another graph here. Dishwasher usage per person. Do you think it was down because people during the pandemic were ordering a lot of takeout and not running dishes in the dishwasher? William says he sees it happening a lot in his neighborhood.
Well, William, I think you misread the chart. Dishwashing is actually up. What's really going on is people are not ordering enough from restaurants. They're cooking at home a lot more and running their dishwasher. Loads per person per day was 0.4 versus 0.1. So 4 times higher frequency. What went down, perhaps counterintuitively, is clothes washing. Although, as someone suggested, that stay at home, you're just lounging around. You don't care if you're wearing the same thing for a couple of days, and so you don't have as much laundry to do.
Okay, thanks, Peter. And another question for William. This one's for Dave. When you say you're targeting your most wasteful customers, is that those that are 200% over their outdoor budget or something like that? How do you define what wasteful is? And he says, thanks and great presentation.
Well, thanks, William. Appreciate that. So when we develop a budget, we develop both an indoor budget and an outdoor budget. So we map all of the irrigated area for each of our customers, and then we develop an outdoor budget for them. We then combine that with the indoor budget. So in all honesty, I can't say with accuracy that they're exceeding their indoor budget to some extent that is contributing to them becoming over budget relative to outdoor water usage. But given the fact that most of our water usage is outdoor water usage, that would not be at all surprising that it is outdoor water use that's really bumping up the outdoor budget. Given the community that we live in Calabasas and Hidden Hills, these are very large parcels. And so they're extensively landscaped. And so those tend to be the customers that we would classify as our wasteful customers because they use so much more water than what their budget would allow for. So typically I would say that it is outdoor water usage that is causing people to bump over their budget. And then if they go over 200% of their budget, we call them wasteful water users. If they go over 150 or over 100% of their budget, we call them inefficient. And if they stay within their budget, then they're an efficient irrigator. And then they also receive a lower water rate for being efficient than those that bump into inefficient, and particularly those that then go into wasteful.
Okay, great. All right, we have a question now for Peter again. This one's from Jim. Did you compare the outdoor water use in summer and in winter? What is the ratio of winter in outdoor use to summer outdoor water use?
Okay, so the Folsom end use study was just 1 month in the summer. So that study that I mostly presented on, no. But the other data that I showed at the end that came from all of the Flume devices that were installed in California, you could conceivably make that calculation, and I just did it. So I read the thing, and so the ratio approximately of the peak summer use per capita of outdoor and indoor was 2.66. So multiply indoor by 2.66 to get outdoor.
Okay. Now we have one question that I know, Andrew, you tried to answer for Ursula Schmidt, but I don't think we quite got to the answer. Her question was, are medians included in your spatial analysis? And your question was to her, you mean median irrigable area per parcel? I think she means medians as in the streets.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That helps. So medians were not included because they fall outside. Well, where they fall outside the parcel, they're not included. There are some districts where the parcel lines will go out to the median. That's very rare. So generally, they're not included. They fall into public right of way is generally not irrigated by the residential landowner, and so that is not included in the analysis. It's a little bit like that parkway strip. So, but thank you for clarifying that. I was thinking statistically, not physically. So.
Yeah. No, and because I heard you say parkway strips, but we often call them medians. So okay. I figured that it was a UK terminology.
No. So the UK terminology is dual carriageway.
Oh,
median is like dual carriageway. So I try not to use that in public settings.
Okay. Yeah, we would wonder if you were talking about horse and buggy. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So I don't see any more questions in the actual chat, unless someone just asked another one. No, I don't see any more. So I think if there are any comments that the speakers want to make in terms of closing, I'm sure our attendees wouldn't mind being released a few minutes early. But if this is your last opportunity to say your final words of wisdom to the crowd.
I would just say thank you again for the opportunity. It's a great opportunity. I think we're all going to be, facing this challenge together. And as a water purveyor, it's always nice to hear what other people are doing and to capitalize on their successes. similar to what we did with the Garden in the Box program. That program was such a phenomenal success in Colorado. They sell over 4,000 of those gardens per year in Boulder, Colorado. We're going to start out much smaller than that, but we essentially, stole that idea. When we met with Resource Central, we talked with them about it. They would prefer if we don't call it Garden of the Box, but apart from that, they are more than happy to provide their expertise in helping to start up a program like that. So I think those types of networking opportunities are going to be increasingly important for all of us.
Great. Yes, well, thank you. And thank you very much. Thank you, Arthur, for giving us the overview to kick us all off. And we're going to be watching with great interest what DWR and the State Board come up with between now and October. So thank you for your presentation. Thanks, Andrew, for clarifying some of the mysteries in the aerial imagery and landscape classifications. Thanks, Peter, for giving us some eye-opening data on indoor water use. And thanks, Dave, for showcasing a great utility and how it plans to comply with the framework targets. So thank you all. Thanks also to Tia Lephertz, who is our backstage wizard. So thank you very much for helping us with that. And let's make sure we see you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. Again, fingers crossed that Zoom doesn't crash again. We'll see you in the morning. Thanks again, everybody, for participating.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.